Hello everyone. First of all, I've just got in from it being absolutely pissing it down and scary gale force winds, but I'm determined that I'm going to get this video up on time this week. So I was like, no, I'm not going to shower, I'm not going to do my hair, I'm just going to go for it, looking like crap. But you know, you're all a feminist, so you don't care. This video is for people who think that street harassment is not a problem. Okay, ladies, hands up if you've ever been in a public place, such as walking down the street, and have experienced any of these things. Number 1, unwanted sexual remarks from men. Remarks can range from things like, hey baby, to, wow, I'd fuck that till she bled. That last one I have actually had said to me. 2, unwanted sexual attention from men. This includes wolf whistling, making kissy noises at you when you walk past, staring at your boobs when you are visibly uncomfortable with them doing so. Thirdly, if you've ever been sexually assaulted by a man in a public space. This includes things we don't normally think of as sexual assault but are, such as men touching your breasts, legs, bum, or trying to touch your genitals. And it really, really genuinely breaks my heart that probably like 99% of you were able to put your hand up. A lot of people, and when I say a lot of people, read men who feel they have some sort of inalienable right to harass women on the street, get really mad when you say that this is not an okay way to treat people. I've heard things like, oh, it's a joke, it's a compliment, why are you taking it so seriously? Lighten up. I would love it if every time I left the house women came on to me. What you're saying is, I can't tell a girl she's pretty in public now, but the human race will die out. Let me tell you now, street harassment, it's not about complimenting people. It's about power. It's about forcing someone to acknowledge what you think of their body and their appearance. And if you see someone attractive and you want to talk to them, don't pretend that you're not going into that hoping that that talk will eventually lead to you having sex with them. You don't understand what it is to walk around as a woman in a society where we're constantly told not to go out by ourselves after dark, not to put ourselves in vulnerable positions, to be taught and to know that we are at a very high and real risk of sexual violence. Is really scary, and as such it makes us wary of people, and even if your intentions are harmless, even if you'd go away completely unflustered if we said we weren't interested, you need to recognise that your actions don't exist in a vacuum. They exist in a context, and that context is rape culture, and it's a culture where there are high levels of sexual violence, and a culture where we blame victims for their own assaults. Now, can you understand why we feel like threatened and nervous and terrified and scared when you shout things at us on the street? If you think I'm taking away your right to talk to pretty girls on the street, well, firstly, you don't have a right to accost strangers on the street and tell them what you think of their appearance. And secondly, there's a really valuable article in the description bar written by a guy, 4 guys, explaining why approaching women in public is not something to be taken lightly. My body isn't public property, nor is anybody else's. So you don't have a right to comment on it, and you don't have a right to leer or stare at me, even after I've made eye contact with you and shown you clearly that I would like you to stop. You don't have a right to threaten to rape me, to tell me how much you want to touch me. You don't have a right to stop me and demand I talk to you. You don't have a right to my time. You don't have a right to touch me without my permission. You don't have a right to a smile from me. You don't have a right to call me a bitch or a cunt after I tell you to stop and go away or ignore you. You don't own me, and you don't own my body, and you don't have the right to harass me or anybody else. To make this video, I asked on the Pesky Facebook page, our Tumblr and our Twitter, as well as my own personal social media accounts, for people to contact me with their experience of street harassment. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to read you the experiences that I was sent. There's a lot of them, which is why this video is pretty long, but I'm going to tell them because you need to know that this isn't about men stopping us on the street and saying, excuse me, madam, but you seem to have a very charming personality and share the same interests as me. I would like to get to know you. It's about men intimidating us on purpose. And if you can look me in the eye afterwards and tell me that street harassment is a compliment and not a serious issue, then I'm going to believe that you don't care about women as people and that you only care about them as things for you to look at and have sex with. I got an overwhelming amount of responses for my street harassment vlog, and I didn't have time to read them all out to you today, but again, there is a link in the description bar which has everyone's contribution in case you want any more evidence that this happens to women all the fucking time, and we don't like it, and it's scary and shit and horrible. And I also think it's really important that these experiences get told, because I'm really grateful to everyone who sent them in to me, because I know that often you might be like reliving bad memories or scary stuff, and I just think it's quite brave to email into a stranger or whatever quite scary and nasty experiences that you've had. So thank you so much to everyone who contributed, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but yeah, really respect you getting in touch with me. Thank you very much. And so they're all on my blog. This is from Sally. I get harassed every other day on my way to work. I have to walk down a street with a load of builders on it who catcall to me and my work colleague if she's with me, ask me why I'm smiling if I'm smiling, tell me to smile if I'm not, leer at me as I walk past, make foul noises, whistle, tell me off for biting my nails if I have a finger in my mouth for whatever reason. I continue to walk down there bold as brass because they've never touched me and are pretty harmless, and I don't want to change my course for them, but it is intimidating, uncomfortable and humiliating. This is from user RNJ3007. Tonight, walking home with my child, who is 3, awful things shouted that no 3-year-old should hear, or anyone for that matter. Sizist, sexist, crude and triggering. And then followed home with them on bikes, jeering and swearing at me for telling them to go away and not use such language around my child. This is from an anonymous user. Street harassment story. I got on the bus on my way home from college and sat in my usual seat, and a man got up from where he was sitting to move to the seat right next to me. He then proceeded to tell me how pretty I was and how he wanted my number, etc, etc. When I tried to get off the bus, he wouldn't let me, and I had to be helped by a stranger. It was really, really scary. This is from someone else called Jenny, who says, in regard to your street harassment vlog, I've had it quite a lot. I developed quite big boobs at age 13 and have received a lot of attention. The worst was when I was walking past a pub at age 16 and got wolf whistled at and heard, I'm in love. I shot the guy a filthy look and he responded with, not with you, love, with your tits. They are a nice size. I basically now hate walking anywhere by myself and love winter where I can cover myself up with a coat. This is from Kinks, who's vlogged for us before. I was in a club and 2 guys came over and essentially divvied up me and my mate between them. The dude slipped his hand around his waist and tried to kiss me without saying anything, without me even vaguely indicating that I wanted anything of the sort. I pushed him off and said I wasn't into him or guys in general. He responded by putting his hands on my boobs and saying, why you gotta be like that? Come on, baby. It was sickening. It's from Sarah. I was getting the night bus home after a night out around 2:30am, and I was the only one on the bus to begin with. And when I got on, I gave the bus driver some money and began to walk off without my change. And he was really creepy, saying, oh, it's all right, darling, I can keep the change if you want and buy you a drink tomorrow night, or it could pay for some other special treats if you like, and winked. And I'm assuming these treats are sexual favours, and then he asked for my name, and I don't know, but I felt so threatened at that time. I was the only one on there for about 10 minutes, and I felt so unsafe and threatened that someone in a position of responsibility and stuff could say that and make me feel so uncomfortable. I think what made it worse as well was the fact that I was admittedly still drunk and dressed for a night out. It kind of made me more scared because I knew I wasn't in a proper state of mind. And if something awful were to happen, I don't know what I could have done. It's from Audrey, who's also vlogged for us before. Not the last time I was harassed, because that happens almost on a daily basis, but once when I was walking to school, I got stared up and down by some guy on a bike who proceeded to wolf whistle at me, got beeped at by lorry drivers, and on the way home on the same day, right outside my house, there were 2 guys from the council fixing a dodgy streetlight, and as I walked past and went through my gate, I heard one of them say, look at the legs on that. I was too scared to say anything back to any of them and felt utterly disgusting after having a multitude of dirty, pervy old men share their unwanted, dirty, pervy opinions with me on my way to and from school. I was walking down the street outside my house when a builder smiled at me while looking me up and down in a way that made me feel uncomfortable. As I walked past, he said, all right to me. I ignored him, but when I looked over my shoulder, he was still staring at me and grinning. When I walked home several hours later, he was still there. I immediately felt nervous and didn't want to walk past him. He watched me approach and, still staring me up and down, I put my head down, didn't make eye contact, crossed my arms and walked very quickly past him, trying to keep my distance. He asked me my name and I ignored him. When I glanced over my shoulder a few steps later, I realised he was following me, still staring at me and smiling in a really sleazy way. I felt very threatened, as he could obviously tell he was scaring me and didn't care. When I got around the corner, I ran all the way home. And that's from me.